I'm a casual as it gets with UFC. But you know what? I might watch a lot more of it now because it's going to be way more accessible.
Yes, it is.
Just today, the deal was announced, an exclusive rights deal with Paramount. It's $7.7 billion for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
All numbered events will be on CBS for free, is the latest news. So what are your thoughts on UFC with Paramount Plus?
So from a fan's perspective, this is super cool. Why is that, right? There's pros and cons to both of it. The pros, let's start at the most blaring one is for us, it's as fans, it's going to be significantly easier to catch all these broadcasts. If you watched every UFC event this year on ESPN, you're paying $1,160, right? That's not a cheap, that's a month's rent for some people, just to watch these UFC things. Going forward with the Paramount deal, UFC was paying $214 million a year. ESPN. Now UFC is going to garner $1.1 billion a year from Paramount. So it comes simply with a Paramount Plus membership now. So for $8 a month, you have access for everything, $120, and you can watch everything the UFC is going to put out, numbered events. And then they'll air some free on CBS TV, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. It's super cool, right? That's the pros to it, right? And it's time for the fighters to get paid now. Because in the old days, the UFC made it very hard for fighters to know exactly what they were getting. And in turn, they couldn't ask for or didn't know what to ask, what was a fair number. And they probably weren't getting great information back, on that front. That's been a constant battle between the UFC and their fighters. Well, now it's clear as day, $1.1 billion a year. And the fighters, for you guys, it's time to get paid.
So where's the down for the fan? I think the fans are the biggest winners. I don't think it's close. What would be the drawback to being able to get it cheaper and see everything without having to pay additional pay-per-view?
So here's the deal with that. And it's happened with the UFC when they signed on with ESPN the first time. It's happened with WWE, which obviously isn't like a sport. It's a bit different. But think about it like this. So you're a business and I have to, and this is when UFC became great, was I knew as Dana White, I had to put on cards that people were going to pay for or I wasn't going to get money. You know what I mean? When you pay me $7.7 billion in advance, and I know that money's coming in every month regardless, they don't feel that urgency to sell the pay-per-views like they used to. You understand what I'm saying? So with this pay-per-view model no longer a thing, where I used to say, I need Conor and Khabib to headline.
You think it dilutes some of the better?
Well, it certainly does. We haven't gotten a lot of the fights that we've hoped for over the last couple of years, ever since the ESPN deal happened. And that used to be Dana White's calling card, There was always boxing, you never get the fights you want to see. But UFC, if you want to see this guy fight this guy and see who's the best, you're going to get it here. And when Conor was coming up and Khabib was in his prime and Ronda Rousey was doing her thing, that's what we were seeing. And they kind of got away from it. So that would be my only worry. If as the UFC, I don't have to sell 1 million pay-per-views anymore. I get my $1.1 billion guaranteed. And if I'm, William Morris, IMG, those people who pay, CAA who bought them out, they got their money back now. So we'll see how enticed they are to go ahead and continue to deliver these high-level cards. And they're going to get their money either way. So we'll see. That would be my only downside to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge boon for the sport as a whole.
Absolutely.
Because even with ESPN is the biggest, it's a worldwide leader. It's the biggest sports platform that there is. You correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I ever saw a fight on ABC.
There were a couple, but
But
they would select. They wouldn't give you the ones that people were dying to see.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So that's where I think this could really, and the UFC is already kind of mainstream, but I think it puts it on scale to really start bridging the gap between the 4 major sports in our country. And I think it's going to launch a lot of these fighters into superstardom already. And even to a higher level of superstardom than they already are. I was my nephew who's 22, and he was telling me he's a gamer, and he was telling me he plays the game. He's like, I love to fight with the fighters and stuff. For that type of fan, or even the casuals like myself, to be able to flip it on CBS and see some of their best fights, I think that could really vault UFC to another level as far as just in mainstream sports. Because I still think some people view it as fringe or not mainstream, and I think this could go a long way for that.
And what they do a great job of is there's just constantly content after content. Like it could be they have so many different things that they do now under that UFC umbrella that every weekend is something. There's a Friday card, there's a Saturday card, there's a Sunday card. So inevitably, eyes are going to find it now that maybe didn't before, and you'll pull a few fans this week and a few fans next week, and then maybe you'll see the fight of your life. And remember how like in boxing you see that like Arturo Gatti fights, and suddenly like, wow, I did not expect that, and then I'm hooked. So you're going to see a lot of fights. People are just going to have the ability to see everything now, and And by default, they're gonna rope people in for sure. And it's exciting, man.
Do you think there's any change to the broadcasting? Joe Rogan will be a part of this, right?
Well,
John Anik, like, do you still think they'll have the same voices, or some of those guys tied into other networks?
No, it'll be, I think you're probably your top tier stuff. They want to hear their top tier voices, and having Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier and John Anik, those guys are an asset. So they're going to continue to put those guys on, but I can see more of like the fighters that are transitioning out now, the Weidmans of the world, the Wonder Boys of the world, these guys who got great personalities, and you could see them on, now there'll be more opportunities for them to get behind a desk, and maybe they couldn't before because there was 2 shows a month, and now there'll be 4 or 5, and all this other stuff will be playing in mainstream. So I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good transition for a lot of the guys making their way out.